Hi, my name is CJ and this is my RC channel. Okay, so we need to make the two lower front linkages, and it says that we need to use the 90 millimeter, these two of the longest ones. So let's see, we need the bent ones, and as you can see, one angle's up, one angle's, let's say, right, one angle's left, and then vice versa, so that they can start wide and come to a point together. So let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, and 4 of the angled ones. Basically, you just screw these down to bottom. Sounds right. Sounds easy to hold these. That's right. Okay. This is going to start coming together real fast now. So now we need our front axle and a pair of the shocks. Again, just like I set these up, I'm taking a pair where the two screws are going to face forward. Could have them face inward from both sides to the center of the car. I think I'll do it that way. That way the screws aren't as easily visible. So these are going to go outside on these two yokes here, and the connecting rods are going to go like that, and we need a pair of these long screws here. Just yep, that's what we want. Okay. I think you can see how this is just going to start coming together quick. And we need two of these short linkages, and those are going to have straight connectors. In case you're wondering why sometimes I flip the thing over, there's usually one side on eyelets like this that's a little bit wider than the other. You can just kind of tell by looking. Okay, so Now we need 2 slightly shorter screws, and these are going to go in between these 4 pieces right here. So that just going to slide in there. Yep. Okay, so now we're going to prep the linkages for our rear axle now that we've got our front done. So those basically are going to go like that. So, same kind of setup with the rears. We got the angled connectors, or the angled ball ends. There's it. There. It's good to get them started by hand so you make sure that they're threading in straight, because you don't want them going in off angle. Eventually it would probably correct itself, but you're going to be damaging the plastic at that point. Okay. Good. So, yeah, just like in the rear, in the front, we're gonna set those up like that. So, gotta put in our little ball studs. Last 2 of the long screws. Shock absorbers oriented in the correct direction that I want. Okay, our last 4 eyelets. And this is our last link. Now it seems like we're, really making progress, and we are, but there's still a lot to do. We've got a transmission to build with a dig. We've got drive shafts to build, and don't forget that we've got wheels to screw together, and those wheels are a lot of work because it's just a lot of small screws. So these pieces can be set aside. We've already done this. So now it's time to move on to E. So I'm going to set these off here on my table. And let's get the e-bag. This is one of the nice things about this kit, is that all of our transmission gears are metal, and even the shifting fork for the dig is metal. This must be dig parts. And here we have all of our bearings. Very nice. It's definitely a quality kit. You're getting your money's worth and then some. A lot of transmission case parts. So oh, they were stuck together. Some of these parts were packed with a little bit of oil on them. They may just be painted steel. So the oil was there to keep them from corroding or rusting. Now I can't be sure, but this looks like part of the dig where this piece right here with the slot down the center is gonna key into this piece to create that locking action, and this piece is gonna move it back and forth on a shaft so that it can lock in. I'm just guessing, but we'll see. So, okay, 1, 2, 3 of those, and those are the M2x6. We need 3 of them. There's just some other M2s in here, so make sure you get the 6s. They're going to be the shorter. Okay, and our thread locker is going to come into play again. And it looks like there's a bearing that's going to go in here. And that's the 7003. That's the 4x8x3. It's going to get sandwiched in here. So let's line up the holes on these 2 parts to start with. There we go. I think I can just set that down like that. Yep. And there's no lube or anything required. These all just sandwich together to create one assembly. Oh, wrong wrench. Again, don't tighten them completely down yet. Wait till all three of them are in and then start snugging them in. Now remember, these M2s are semi-fragile. They're very thin. You can easily over torque and snap one, and then you're going to be waiting for parts to come from Axial. So, you know, you're using Loctite. They're going to stay. Just make sure they're firmly tightened, but don't risk shearing one of them. Okay, let's see. Well, this is the only other gear. They don't give us a left and right view. It's got a pin slot on either side. Okay, so we need that drive shaft. We need okay, so let's see. Got the pin. We need a pair of bearings. Probably these. Check those in a moment. 5x10s. And we need this big bearing and this bearing. And these are for this big drive gear. So let's go ahead and press our bearing in there and in here, and then this bearing is going to go in here. And I know it seems it looks like I'm going through this so fast that I've done this before, but I've never built this kit before, and it's just that easy once you kind of see the parts, and if you've built any models before, it's pretty obvious what you're looking at. Let's get out our white grease. And it really, again, doesn't take much. This is going to get all over the gear and all over this gear in no time. And again, I can easily demonstrate that just by rotating this. And we'll see that that grease is already covered both gears. That's all we need. You just need a small amount. More than that, and you risk just choking up the transmission. And is there anything else before we snap these together? Nope. Wait a second. This may be on the opposite side. let's try doing it this way. Wait a minute. This goes in from the other side. I see what I'm doing wrong. Okay. Easy enough. This shaft has to come from this side. And then we have to kind of slide this pin in here. Okay. Easiest way to do that is going to be with a pair of needle nose pliers. Line up your hole like in this direction. Take the pin and guide it in like that. We're going to take our gear, put it down on top of that pin. Now we can put these halves together. Bingo. And there is our smooth spinning main part of our transmission. So they want us to put in one screw for now up top. It is a countersunk screw, and it is a M3 by 12. And that is probably one of these. And that is correct. No. Gotta be this. Yes. So don't crank this down too tight, because you're gonna offset the gearbox potentially. Just snug it down for now. You can come back around and tighten it a little more later. We're just trying to keep the case from falling apart on us while we're assembling other parts. So just touch down on it. You can see we're going to be putting other bolts in here, and that'll sandwich everything together. So now we need this. We need our little fork for the, it's like a transmission fork. Plastic piece. Is probably this barrel right here. So this goes through here. Okay, first we need to put a C-clip on here. And here is the C-clip. It's in the bag with the hardware. That C-clip is going to go on this little axle right here. See, they don't really make that clear. I'm wondering if the fork goes in between here and the C-clip to hold it. That seems like it would be logical, but may not be. Let's see if there's another image that shows it. There is not. But I was correct about where that fork goes. It goes in here. We're going to need this piece and this piece. It looks like, let's see, use spacer for full-time four-wheel drive. No dig function. Okay, so it says use the spacer for full-time four-wheel drive. That's this little box here. We want to use the dig. This would prevent the fork from moving. So you still have the dig in place, but it would be unused. We want to use it. And I did purchase the servo for it, so I'm gonna try putting this clip on here, and then, because again, it's, you know, again, you would think that because they've got that C-clip, instead of just making another machined rim, that this has to be here, like this. And that's what I'm going to bet on. I can always take it back off again. But there's just no reason for that C-clip and that rim there if it's not to hold these two together. There we go, fully seated. Make sure that C-clip is locked in place, that it's fully in. Okay, if that C-clip is higher than the metal edge here, it's not seated. And you should be able to just like put your fingernail up against the open end of that C-clip and rotate this rod freely without turning the C-clip. The C-clip should just spin independently of this axle. That's how you know it is seated. It's also not deformed in any way. So we need this piece. We need one of these small bearings. Seat that in place. We need to, okay, this piece is going to go down in here, and it's going to get screwed against the inner wall of this case like that. So we're going to need some Loctite on that for sure. So it snaps in place quite satisfyingly, and then you can just, like, I'm just going to put the teeth or the jaws of this pliers in here to rotate this so that the holes are lined up so we can see through it. And we need the 144s, which are the 3x8 countersunk. That's the short countersunk screws. Need a pair of those. And you see how the spacer would prevent this fork from moving back and forth. It would hold this to the rear to prevent it from locking. So you would have full-time all-wheel drive, but no dig. Don't want too much on there. Not likely I'd ever have to take that out unless this case gets damaged. The metal parts should be fine. You know, again, don't tighten that down until you get the second screw at least started, or you might have a hard time getting it lined up. And don't forget the Loctite. Okay. Now, they don't tell us to do so, but I'm going to put a little bit of grease on this surface, and on the fork, because this is going to be spinning, and it's going to have to mesh in with these basically teeth like that. So it's never going to slip free. I mean, these are blocks. They don't have any bevel to them or angle that would allow it to slide, but you want it to lock in smoothly. And you also want that fork to spin cleanly inside here. Like I said, I'm not putting a lot, just a little bit in there, and definitely got to put some on here. I'm going to put a little extra in here. Just going to set that there for the moment. Just kind of smearing the grease on the inner face here. Where that fork is going to slide. I mean, at the very least, it'll make the dig a little more quiet. So there's no left or right side to this. They are the same. So we got to slide our fork in like this. And then we just lower this through this hole here. Oh, yeah. Just thinking about something. There we go. So now we're going to need to, let's see, we need to screw this eyelet, that's the wide one, on. There is a small flat spot on either side of this little axle that's going to allow you to grab it. That way we can screw this on, and we can do that after this is together. So the end with the hole in it sticks through here, and that's another thing that could use a little bit of grease, because this is going to slide back and forth on here. Really surprised that they're not instructing us to put some lubrication on these parts. Because see, this square fitting here is the digs actually slides onto this, and that is going to go back and forth inside there, and it needs to move smoothly. Without any lubricant in there, it's not going to move easily. I'm just kind of making sure that that lubricant is all the way in there. So okay, you see how this can, when the transmission spins, this is the drive right here, we've got both of these axles turning together. When you pull this out and slide that dig over to lock it, only this one turns, this one does not. And oops, anyway, damn, fumble fingers. So that is a nice little setup there. So there's our dig action right there. And see, that's why that piece is screwed back there. When the dig is forward, it's locking the forward axle or axle output shaft to the rear output shaft, and they turn together when you, like that. So when you pull this backwards, that dig is locking against the case, and that prevents the rear output shaft from rotating at all. It disconnects it from the front and locks it to the case. So we need a short countersunk and 2 of the long countersunk screws. And the short one goes up top. Clean that off. I think I'm going to be really glad that I put that grease in there, and I highly recommend that you guys follow my lead on that. So we do not need that little plastic barrel, again, unless we want to change this. Whoa, that's not right. Those are the long ones, the really long ones. That's weird. I'm not getting those started for some reason. I'm having a hard time getting the thread started. Yeah, that one isn't really doing it either. Okay, let's have a look at what's going on in here. It seems like one of them was starting to bite. I'm using the wrong wrench. What an idiot. Again, you don't need to over tighten these. Just want to make sure that the case is sealed. You'll feel it when it starts to hit bottom, when you're, starting to tighten it down. And now we can tighten this top screw a little more. So our transmission spins nice and smooth. And then our dig action locks in. So now we need to put in this hook here, or the eyelet. I would like to be able to grab that with a wrench. I wonder if I've got something small enough for that. Might just have to use a needle nose. Might not have been a bad idea to have pre-threaded this while the transmission was apart. Yeah, that looks like the same size. Let's start a few threads here. That should do it. Yeah, see, that really helped. Definitely do that. Excellent. Okay. So we're done here. So now it's on to this. We've got our slipper clutch to do. We need the large plastic barrel, which is this one. Let's see. Okay, that's the next step down. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So bolt. That's the one. And that should be a 7mm wrench. Yep. Okay, so let's see if there's an obvious left or right side to these. Not really. This side's, the edge seems a little more rolled over. Now, definitely want to wipe these off. You don't want any grease on there. And it would be nice if there was some explanation to this. Okay, these are our clutch plates. Basically, these are the slipper plates. They're going to be held in place by this hexagonal shape here, like that. Okay, the side with the writing on it, you want facing this. Okay, because that's the part that's not going to move. This is going to rub against this metal washer and this metal washer. So those are the ones that you want facing out. That's the abrasive side. And you want to make sure that they're fitted, as it were, to... You don't want that, like, you don't want this to be put together like this. Okay? Or your clutches, you're going to damage that and it's not going to work properly. So you want to make sure that you're putting that together correctly and that it doesn't fall out on you while you're assembling this. So stack it like that, rotate until you get that washer in place, tip it over, hold it down with your fingers, put this clutch pad with the abrasive side facing up. Let's wipe that washer off just to be sure. Drop that down. Okay, spacer. And I'm really surprised that there's no spring. Usually a clutch has a spring on it. And there are usually some fairly specific directions about how tight it should be. That is very peculiar. See, here is the spring that I would think would go in place of this. And I'm going to go through these directions until I find the spring, where that spring goes, because I don't believe this. I suppose it could be part of the servo saver for that little one. Yeah, I guess so. Yep. Okay. It's for the servo saver. I have never seen a clutch assembly without a spring. That's just odd as hell. Okay, that bolt needs to be pretty tight then. Otherwise, this clutch assembly is just going to be a joke. The motor's going to spin and nothing's going to happen. So I'm going to basically slide this wrench in here so I've got something to lock the drive axle with. And I'm going to tighten that up. There we go. Ah, that's odd. Okay, so we've got that done. Now we need our drive gears, or what's going to lead to our pinion gear. So we need this. We got 2 more bearings. Those are going to drop in here and here. This is basically what you would call an idler gear. And there's a thin washer, almost like a shim. and that goes behind this bearing here. So that goes on there like that. And then we have our case. Just going to close over that. So let's get some white grease going on here. And that's plenty. Let me just kind of clean that off there. It's almost a little much. Of course, this piece is exposed, so it's not a fully sealed transmission, so you got to be careful about going into water. Okay, so we got a pair of 144s and a 146. So that's the two of the short ones and one of the mediums. Okay, there's a medium countersunk, short, and short. So at least they give us access to this clutch bolt here. Let's just start with this one. Now, this only holds one end of the idler gear, so it's not a huge stress-bearing member. Snug it down, don't go crazy, don't over-tighten. Okay, well, that's done. Okay, motor. That's interesting. No instructions. At least we don't have to worry about soldering at this end of things. It's really nice the way they've done that sensor cable with this. It is a proprietary connector, so you have to run this motor, you know, with a like ESC from Hobbywing, but they are designed to work together for a reason, so there's a lot of advantage there. So let's see, they give us a 14. Okay, if you understand gearing, the smaller the pinion gear, the slower the vehicle is going to go, but the more power it's going to have. So I'm going to leave their 14 aside for right now, and I'm going to assemble this with the larger of the two that I got. I got a 12 and an 11. So I'm going to go ahead and take the grub screw for this, and I'm going to put a little Loctite on it. Oops. And I'm going to thread it in here and put it in a box for future reference. It's very nice that they give you 2 grub screws with each pinion gear in case you lose one, which should never happen if you're using Loctite, which you should always do on pinion gears. Now, I'm not going to totally tighten this down yet because I don't know what position it's going to need to be in exactly. I'm just going to snug it down for the moment. And let's get this motor in place. The next question is going to be, how do I want these wires to route? So let's see. Let's get our motor screws out. That's these kind of flat, square-headed, square-shaped screw tops. Let's see. Okay, that's up. So okay, so that needs to come up about 3 millimeters. Let's check that again. A little more. You don't want to go so far that this rounded edge has any chance of encountering the gear there. Yeah, I think I'm happy with that. So for now, I'm just going to point the wires straight up in relationship to the base of the transmission. If I need to rotate the motor a little later, I'll worry about that then. So that looks like where we want these. And I'm just I mean, I just touched down on that. I'm not tightening it all yet because I want to, you know, position the motor first. Make sure I've got a little bit of gear lash. In other words, you don't want the gear hard against the other gear, otherwise you'll have binding. You want a little bit of what's called lash, and that means that the gear can rock back and forth a teeny bit. It's not a lot, otherwise you'll strip gears, but you want those gears to rotate smoothly, so it's important to have that little bit of play. I'm surprised that there isn't, or that this isn't an aluminum case. At least this center section here, this one plate. But it looks like it's going to be sturdy, so we'll see. So now we've got good motion there. Okay, time to set up the dig servo. Oh wait, one more plate. I'm going to cover this gear like that. And that's going to require 2 more of these short countersunk screws. Okay, one gearbox done. We have access to that slipper. Got our dig. Everything looks good.
I hope you enjoyed this video. Please click like and please subscribe to my channel.